will begin in moments. Oh man, it's all coming apart in Minnesota. They're losing everything in Minnesota, and of course we're going to cover it all. I will be taking your calls. I'm going to be playing a lot of audio and video, so if you want to see that, you have to go to my main live stream, which is linked in the description of the video. All right, you click that link. I'll start the main live stream in just a moment. And that's where you're going to see and hear all the audio, and we're covering a lot of important stuff, so you will not want to miss it. All right. All right, here we go. It's showtime. Yeah, the number is toll-free. It's pinned in the live chat. You're welcome to call in. Welcome to the Brian Craig Show podcast. My name is Brian Craig, and this is where MAGA comes to talk. It's all falling apart for the Democrats in Minnesota. Tim Walz, Ilhan Omar, and all the rest. Everything is coming very clear. This billion-dollar theft is now turning into $8 billion with a B theft in Minnesota from the Somalian community through the Democrats. Ilhan Omar, I'm going to go through his story. We have the disclosures now. This member of Congress, girl came here with nothing from Somalia. According to the latest disclosures, I'm going to go through this shortly. Ilhan Omar's net worth is $30 million. Holy smokes, $30 million. And that's why when we've seen her on these TV appearances in the last few days, she hasn't looked herself. She's very worried. She's very concerned. This is, of course, Fox News last night. Laura Ingraham, listen to this. Mm-hmm. Mm. Wow. So this is a new wrinkle, and so this theft ring that resulted in them stealing $8 billion by the latest reports. The legislation set up for the entire program was introduced into Congress by Ilhan Omar herself. Oh man, this is outnumbered on Fox yesterday. Okay, so now the next thing is going to be is to find out where she got the 30 million, and I'm gonna go through this. This story is really blowing up. Ilhan Omar's net worth jumps to as much as $30 million in new disclosure after she had claimed she's not a millionairess. Let's see here if I can play this. May have to wait, gotta wait for the ad. But this is, she's very worried. She is very, very worried. And it couldn't happen at a better time, because what's going to happen as this is getting processed through the system, we're going to be in the midterm election season. Remember, January, the new year, begins the midterm election season. So we're going to be in the middle of our midterm election season when all of this is breaking. This is Ilhan Omar on CNN. Oh, let me see. It doesn't want to play. I hate when that happens. Hold on. Okay, here we go. All right, here we go. That was the wrong clip. It recycled and went to the wrong clip. It doesn't matter. I'll read you the story because this is not going well for Ilhan Omar or the Democrats in general. I'm not sure why the wrong clip's playing, but it doesn't matter. I've got the text of the story. Ilhan Omar's net worth jumps to as much as $30 million. If you're on hold, by the way, stand by. In new disclosure after claiming she's not a millionaire. This is Fox News. Representative Ilhan Omar's net worth has swelled to as much as $30 million in just 1 year, her congressional financial disclosures reveal. The 2025 disclosure, first reported by the Washington Free Beacon, shows that Ilhan Omar and her husband have a net worth ranging from $6 million to $30 million, despite claims earlier this year that she was not a millionaire. A vast majority of the wealth comes from her husband's two companies, a winery in California and a venture capital firm. See, that's what they do. They do these transactions through their spouses, their children, their brothers, their sisters, their cousins. This is how they do it. The Monday disclosure comes after years of Omar attempting to downplay or outright deny her personal wealth in comments to the press. Since getting elected, there's been a this is what she said. Since getting elected, there has been a coordinated right-wing disinformation campaign claiming all sorts of wild things, including the ridiculous claim, "I am worth millions of dollars," which is categorically false, Ilhan Omar told Business Insider earlier this year. "I am not a millionaire," she added. She hit back on claims about her personal wealth in February, encouraging critics to try checking my public financial statements, and that's where this latest info has come from. Ilhan Omar's office did not immediately respond to a request for comment from Fox News. Her husband's firm, Rose Lake Capital, is valued between $5 million and $25 million, according to the 2025 disclosure. The winery is valued between $1 and $5 million. News of the disclosure comes as Ilhan Omar goes on to some other things that are unimportant. So she is a millionaire 30 times over, and a venture capitalist. Don't you love it? A venture capitalist firm that's all of a sudden worth tens of millions of dollars. And I know a lot of people, they say, I talked about this in great detail on my podcast last night. A lot of people say, well, nothing's going to happen. Well, no, a lot has happened, and a lot is happening. And people who say nothing's going to happen are either fake MAGA or just a bunch of losers who think like losers. Not getting handcuffs on someone and sending them to the penitentiary doesn't mean that they've won and we've lost. The American people are, every time these stories come out, more and more Americans wake up and are red-pilled to the corruption that's going on inside this government, and all the corruption leads to Democrats. You know? And that is how we take our country back. Don't you get it? You know, President Trump is taking our country back on so many levels. And the worst thing you can do to these people is not only take their money away, but take their sources of future money. Yeah, they've stolen all this money, but they're not going to get any more. And in Minnesota, a lot is happening. You're just not paying attention. There's mass deportations going on. On yesterday morning's program, I played a local news story out of Minnesota. They went to one of the busiest malls in Minneapolis, where the Somali community shops. It was a ghost town. It looked like Dan Bell's Dead Mall series. There were so few people there. You ever watch Dan Bell's Dead Mall series on YouTube? It's pretty good. Because of the deportations. Their money supply is being cut off. They've been exposed. The leaders are being named. And there's no more money coming in. That's a lot that's happened. Plus, the American people are waking up each and every day. So don't let these losers tell you nothing's going to happen. Go back to Loserville, all right, of miserable. You know, a lot of people don't see the positive in anything. Believe me, Ilhan Omar is in a panic. She's relatively young. She's just started her thievery, and she's been busted. And she's been busted pretty hard. Here's another report from Fox News. Oh, man. Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, this is really heating up. This is a beautiful thing, and the scandal will be peaking during the midterm election season, which is going to help bring us to victory in the midterms. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Mike from Louisiana.
Mike, I got to tell you, you can't be the first call every day on the show, okay? You got to stagger your calls around, all right? Call later in the program. The rest of you on hold standby. I got nothing against Mike, but, you know, he calls in with, you know, in all different kinds of mysterious ways, and he always ends up being the first or second caller. You can't do that, Mike. I've told you that many times. And the fact that I've talked to you about this many times, and you keep monkeying around to make sure that that happens, tells you everything you need to know, okay? That he's not as nice guy as you think sometimes. Now, more is coming out. This is Dr. Oz, and this is on Minnesota. Listen to this. Oh my goodness. Okay, you see, their money is cut off. So if you're on hold, stand by. I want to go through some more of this stuff before we take more calls. Let me see here. Is this the one? I've got my sound bites a little mixed up. Is this the one I previously played? I'm not sure. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, so okay, that was the one I played before, but it's okay. It's an oldie but a goodie. And here you have the local media even calling out Tim Walz. Okay, do you see that? So there you have, Tim Walz on the defense move there. And this is an election year for Tim Walz, right? So Tim Walz, he has an opponent now, Mike Lindell, My Pillow. And Mike Lindell has filed for his fundraising committee so he can raise money to run for governor. Mike Lindell has talked about running for governor for a while, and now it looks like it's the right time because the Somali power brokers aren't so powerful anymore, and things are really coming home to in Minnesota. A lot of people in Minnesota are not happy with what's going on in their Democrat rule. The Somali have their own police and everything. My wife has some cousins that live in Minnesota. They're lifelong Minnesota people, and people in Minnesota, American people do not like what's been going on there. They feel like the people of Springfield, Ohio, where they're being, they're basically held hostage in their own home and in their own state. And what they're doing is not been sitting out the elections because they figured it was hopeless, right? And now they see an opportunity to take back their state from these foreign invaders and colonists that have stolen as much as $8 billion, according to the latest reports out of Minnesota on Fox News Channel. So this very well, 2026 could be Mike Lindell's year to become the governor of Minnesota. And you guys know Mike Lindell. He's not a politically correct guy. He's going to be talking about this corruption and who's connected to it and who's rich. Now we have Ilhan Omar's financial disclosures. I'm waiting for the financial investigation into Tim Walz, his immediate and extended family, and find out how their net worth has been going up, if it has, over the last few years, and by how much. And there's another thing people are starting to notice is that lunatic Democrat assassin that wore the mask, who was hired by Tim Walz, right, in the state government, worked for the Democrat governor before Tim Walz. People are starting to, is there a connection between that and all of this thievery that's been going on in Minnesota? And if you look at most murders that occur, most murders, by the way, Charlie Kirk, that was an assassination, not a murder. But if you look at most murders that occur, why do most murders happen? All right, why do most murders happen? What's the motive? There's two things in most everyone. There's exceptions, but for the most part, every single murder out there is either about sex or money. That's it. Sex or money. And when they start looking closer into that masked Democrat assassin from Minnesota, I would not be surprised if they find connections to this $8 billion in thievery. This is the largest financial theft, the largest financial crime in this country's history. Nothing like this has ever been seen before at this level. So for those that are telling you nothing's going to happen, a lot is happening right now. You're just ignoring it. Now, if you're on hold, stand by. If you'd like to call in, the number is toll-free, 888-465-2631. You're listening to The Brian Craig Show podcast, available on all podcast platforms. If you'd like to support my channel, become a Patreon supporter. If you become a Patreon supporter, you get access to commercial-free editions of all my podcast episodes in video form, by the way. You also get access to a lot of exclusive material on the Patreon page that my wife and I post there. If you become a top Patreon supporter, you get your name up on the screen on YouTube, and you get a live on-air thank you shout-out on every podcast episode. So the names you'll hear now are my top Patreon supporters. I want to thank SFjr, Christine, ETW, Chuck, Pamela, Nick, Wesley, Doris, Heather, David, Maria in Texas, Alice, LeeZep, Shawna, George, Brandon, John, Frank, Dale, Tina, David, Laura, Rob, Wes, Sue, Janice, Teresa, Irene, and Doris. These are my top Patreon supporters. Thank you all. And again, there's a link in the description of the episode on whatever platform you're listening on to my Patreon page. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everyone. I'm Brian. You're listening to the Brian Craig Show podcast. So this award has just freaked out the left. Yeah, this is CNN covering this. Listen to this. Hear them laughing at Trump getting the Peace Award yesterday? Okay, now, first of all, this thing about it was just created. How many awards do they give out in Hollywood? What do you think the Oscars are all about, right? That's an award where Hollywood gives itself awards, or the Golden Globes, or whatever awards, okay, that celebrities give themselves. All awards like this are created by organizations to promote themselves. You know, even if you go to the awards that, the Emmys or whatever CNN would be eligible for, those are all awards that were set up by the industry themselves so that they could tell themselves how great they are.
At the Kennedy Center.
Oh my goodness, the sparkles, which they're saying that he's stupid because stupid people like sparkly things. This is so petty. I mean, I'm really even reluctant to even comment on it. Every president, whoever they are, gets awards all the time. Most presidents don't get as much coverage as President Trump does, because he's very popular and he's very good for ratings and everything else, So, but the Trump derangement syndrome is so deep in their bones that they cannot control themselves. And the idea that he was given a peace award just drives them through the roof. Like he's not deserving of an award. He stopped multiple wars. We haven't heard from Iran in months. He ended the Israeli-Iran war. He ended the Gaza war. We have one major war left in the country. That's the Ukraine-Russian war. And, that hasn't been ended because you've got two corrupt lunatics on each side. It would have ended months ago if it wasn't for Zelensky, But the Trump derangement syndrome, they can't see anything clearly. And, I got a call yesterday morning from someone, and they, one of these guys that wants us to, get involved in the Ukraine war. He calls from time to time, and I told him I really have no opinion about it. Last night, I fell asleep before the end. I was watching an old movie with Clint Eastwood, Firefox. And it's a Cold War movie about the Russians have developed the most advanced fighter jet ever. It's stealth. It can go Mach 5, and the United States has nothing even close. And he's an American Air Force pilot and Vietnam veteran who they sent over there to steal it. And they go to London, and British intelligence has uncovered all this, and they inform. And I'm watching this movie Firefox last night, which I saw in the theater in its original run, which off the top of my head, I want to say around 83-ish. And the threat of Russia has always been a lie. Russia has never been a threat to this country. They're not a threat to us now, and they weren't a threat to us all the way through the Cold War until it ended with the fall of the Berlin Wall. When the Berlin Wall fell, what was so shocking to me was that Russia was a third world country. And I had no idea the Soviet Union was a third world country. Did you? During that time. Now people know, but back then we didn't know. Everything was a lie. Like North Korea's military parades. They were broke. They did not have advanced technology. It was propaganda, a lot of it through Hollywood and stuff, but also through our government, to maintain the feeding of the military-industrial complex monster. And when I first realized that the Soviet Union, after it had fallen, was a third world country and it was all a lie, there was a mass shooting event in Siberia, and it was covered on CNN, and it was the first time there had been live news coverage of something inside what was then the former Soviet Union. This was not long after the wall fell. You know, we always saw Moscow and you know, places like that, but this was the first time we saw like a regular town, you know, and it looked like a town in the 1880s in Alaska after a snowstorm or something. They did not have a paved road. The road was mud. I mean, and I was like, this is Russia. And we were fed this idea that the Soviet Union and the domino theory was a big threat, and they were equal to, other than the fact that they had a different economic and political ideology, communism, they were just like us. It was almost like it was a parallel universe. They had everything that we had. They had money, they had technology, and they were a threat. Fact is, they weren't a threat. And you know what? They're not a threat now. Now, they're a threat to Ukraine. Don't misunderstand me. Okay, they are a big threat to Ukraine. I'm not stupid. But, you know, Ukraine was offered an incredible opportunity by President Trump. That mining deal, right? Giving those mining contracts to U.S. companies so that U.S. workers and their families would move to eastern Ukraine, and that would have become kind of a DMZ of American families and workers, and Russia never would have crossed it. And Zelensky said, okay. And then he came to Washington, and then he refused to sign it. So Ukraine is about to fall. It's beyond help. Now they're going to try to blame everything on Trump because Trump said he could end the war. He had a way to end the war, and it would have ended if Zelensky would have signed that mineral deal months ago. Now it's too late. It's over. And, you know, Ukraine, you know, it is a civil war. Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union. And I'm not saying that Putin's view is right. I'm not in favor of wars, but Putin's view is that it used to be a part of the Soviet Union, and he wants to bring the Soviet Union back together. That's his view, that's his opinion, and that is what he's trying to do. So the idea that he's going to go after other countries, he's not going to go into Poland. Poland is a NATO country. If he goes into Poland, that's declaring war on the United States and the rest of Europe. He doesn't want to do that. And things are pretty desperate on both sides. In Russia, too, you know, Russia is going through a major financial crisis. You know, my wife and I, we're going through this this phase. We used to watch old movies from like the 30s and everything, and now we watch a lot of movies from the 80s. About a week ago, we don't usually watch Cold War dramas, okay? Firefox was my pick, you know, which was kind of a dud. But a week or two ago, we watched White Nights. Remember that one? That was another Cold War thing. You know, Russia is no problem to us. Things are very bad in Russia right now. We have this complete financial embargo against them. President Trump is starving them from their oil revenue. They have taken heavy losses in the war, just like Ukraine, and they're using drafted soldiers. They're using North Koreans to fight for them in Ukraine. Both sides have taken heavy losses. And, you know, I agree with President Trump. We want the killing to stop. But this war is being lost by Ukraine because Zelensky screwed up and would not sign that mineral deal. And you know what? That is a fact. And it's an inconvenient fact that they don't want to deal with, but it's a fact nevertheless. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. The Brian Craig Show podcast, by the way, is available on all podcast platforms. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Brian. This is John from Wisconsin.
Hey,
How are you
John.
this morning?
Hey, John. What's up?
Well, I was just referring, you were talking about all the corruption in Minnesota with Ilhan Omar, how she could amass $30 million on a job like that.
Yep.
There's been so much corruption in our country for, how long does it go back? I mean, probably before our lifetime, that's for sure.
1776 is when it began.
Yeah.
July 4th.
When Jimmy Carter, he wasn't elected in then, but
1776. There's always been financial corruption.
17.
Yes.
17.
There's always been. Right. It's always been there. Yes.
I misheard you there.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. 1776, and I honestly don't believe that we make a choice in the elections. I think it's all planned out for us. And
no, that has been true with two exceptions. Okay.
Yep.
There have been two presidents that were not a part of the political establishment that caught the establishment off guard and became president. One of them is Donald Trump. Do you know who the other one is?
Yep, Theodore Roosevelt.
Nope. No, are you kidding? No, he was part of the establishment. No, not Theodore Roosevelt.
He got in because of the assassination.
Yeah, but he was part of the he was part of the establishment. No. James Garfield. James Garfield is the only other president who got in who was not a part of the political establishment. And what happened to James Garfield?
They assassinated him.
Correct. Yep. And what happened to Trump and Butler? They shot him. Those are the only two. Right. And when Trump first got elected and everything, I knew that Garfield was the only other president who wasn't a part of to sneak through their process, by accident. But I never talked about it because, I didn't think it was appropriate. But now that they shot Trump, I talk about it from time to time.
Yeah.
But that's true.
Oh yeah, the deep state is I never thought it was that deep. I really didn't.
Yeah.
And it goes all around the world.
Garfield, there's a Netflix series, you guys, if you have Netflix still, watch the first part. It goes downhill. The first part's pretty. I've read books and studied this over the years about Garfield.
Sure.
But the first episode shows how he got the nomination and became president, and it was a very similar thing that's going on because he became president, and he was cutting off their corruption like President Trump has done.
That was Garfield. Was he the one that had two different terms?
No.
Non-consecutive?
No.
Okay.
No. They shot him, and then they made his vice president was an establishment guy that they forced in there. But go watch it on Netflix.
That was
first
Roosevelt,
part.
right?
Mm-hmm. Roosevelt had a bunch of jobs. He was always a part. No, these are the only two that are not a part of the establishment, and they both were shot.
Yeah, it's. I don't know if this corruption keeps up. People don't realize how bad this.
There's always any time you have that much money in government, there's going to be corruption, right? What you can do is expose and stop as much of it as possible. All right, appreciate the call, Wisconsin. The rest of you on hold.
Yeah, thank you, Brian.
Thank you. Hang in there. I wanted to play this clip. They're really trying to do some damage to Bongino, and this is disgusting to me. Now listen, I have been very frustrated with the slow-moving Justice Department, but I believe now that they arrested the J6 pipe bomber, I believe all is forgiven, right? I mean, do you guys agree with that? I mean, this is to me, Bongino and Cash get a fresh new start. That was really amazing what they uncovered there. I talked about that a lot yesterday, so I'm not going to go through it. But he was on Hannity, and he said something that they're trying to use against him to discredit Bongino. Let me play this, and then we'll talk about it. Okay. So they'd taken that clip, and he said, before I was paid to give opinions, now I'm paid to be the deputy director. In fact, and the Democrats, the left, and the fake news media are running with this clip and saying, oh, look, Bongino said he was paid to make things up. No, there's a different standard, right? You and I can come to common sense solutions and give opinions and analysis like I do and you guys do that are listening to me on the things that are unfolding. That's different than having hardcore evidence that you can introduce in a court of law and convict on, right? So Bongino's not saying that he was making things up. He was giving expert analysis on what was going on in the news based on the facts we have out there, but there's a different standard of proof, right? And he's now and what he's saying now, you know, I'm deputy director of the FBI. We have to have hard evidence that we can take into a court, present to a judge and a jury, and get a conviction on. You know, so, you know, that's it. And this is what we have, the concrete evidence that we could prove beyond a reasonable doubt and send someone to prison for the rest of their life for. That's a whole other standard. He's not saying he was paid to make anything up. And I do think we've got to give Bongino and Kash Patel a do-over here, because I think they did a great job. It seemed to me that it was a pretty difficult thing for them to go through all that evidence that Chris Wray had left behind about the J6 bomber. You know, what Chris Wray did is so insane, right? You know, now if you watch what's going on in the media, they're saying that in the interrogation that the J6 bomber said he's a Trump supporter. Where are they getting that information? Where was this interrogation televised? When was the transcript released? They're just making crap up. Don't you see what they're doing? You know, the mainstream media that crafted the false J6 narrative about what President Trump said and what happened on that day, the reason that Chris Wray did not pursue or arrest the bomber is because, and you all know this, because the bomber is a leftist and he's African American. And that didn't fit their white nationalist agenda that they were trying to push and narrative that they were trying to craft. So what they're doing right now is trying to craft a new narrative. Yeah, he's black, but he's a big Trump supporter. He said so during the interrogation. Are you kidding me? How does CNN have any knowledge of what this guy said in the interrogation? Especially something like that. They're making things, you know, this is, it's really sick what they're doing, okay? Like, I give an example. This story here fits into what they do, okay? Look at this. This is in the Gateway Pundit. Jimmy Kimmel, significant number of Americans believe Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin was right-wing. Only 24% of likely voters know, this is according to the Media Research Center, only 24% of likely voters know Charlie Kirk's killer was left-wing. Well, how's that possible, right? That means 76% of people are messed up. And they're thinking, how did that happen? Jimmy Kimmel and the news crafted a false narrative, you know, that the Charlie Kirk assassin was MAGA, was a conservative. So those of you in this audience who know the truth, you're in the 24%. Even though we witnessed it, and the stories about his boyfriend and everything were out there, they've still been able to sell to 76% of the American people, of likely voters, mind you, likely voters, who believe that Charlie Kirk's assassin is MAGA. And they're doing the same thing now with the J6 bomber. They're trying to portray him as a MAGA guy, even though he and his father was in a press conference with Benjamin Crump. In his bail bondsman service that he worked for with his dad was all about helping illegals get bail. But they were successful with Charlie, and they're trying to do that now. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name's Norm, and I'm calling from upstate New York.
All right, upstate New York. What's on your mind?
Good. The last time I talked to you was maybe about a month ago, and I was calling in because I was a little disappointed with what Dan Bongino had been doing, but he might have redeemed himself with
I agree.
what's going on right now.
I think so. It seems like he's been poring over this evidence for months. That's primarily what he's been doing.
When I was watching his show, he had a lot of strong feelings about this, that this was really important. But then we kind of like were waiting around for something to happen. And it didn't seem like much of anything was happening. But maybe there was a lot of things going on behind the scenes that we weren't aware of. Mm-hmm. And now they have something, at least something to show for it, which is good.
Absolutely. Something. So, they arrested the J6 bomber, which it opens the door to a lot of things that happened on January 6th. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see at least something taking place. And, you know, I've always liked Dan. I just was really disappointed that we weren't getting much results, but maybe this is the first step in this.
I've been very frustrated with him and Cash and Pam Bondi. Very frustrated. But at least we know that Dan Bongino has been doing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I still am very disappointed with Pam Bondi. And Cash Patel I think he's doing a decent job, but I still think he could step it up a little bit more. But at least I do believe that Dan is behind like most of the pressure that was put on this to get this resolved. Or not resolved, but to get it solved.
Yep.
So I feel that at least we know that Dan has done more than what we thought was going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, upstate New York, appreciate the call. All right, take care. Take care. If you're on hold, hang in there. My name's Brian. This is the Brian Craig Show podcast. I want to talk about Tom Laporta at Laporta Roofing. If you're in the state of Florida and you need roof replacement or repair, call Tom Laporta. You know, he's voted best roofing company in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. There are more roofing companies in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and the surrounding area probably per capita than anywhere else in the country, maybe even the world, because Fort Lauderdale is Hurricane Alley. So that's an amazing thing to be voted. It says a lot about the greatness of Tom Laporta and Laporta Roofing. You know, Tom Laporta is a good MAGA guy, and he'll never sell you a roof you do not need. And what that means is that if you need just a simple repair, he'll do it. And before I knew Tom Laporta, we had a hurricane years ago, and I did not need a new roof. I was missing some shingles. I couldn't find a roofer to do it. We don't do repairs. We just sell new. But I don't need a roof. I just need some shingles. We don't do that. Isn't that crazy? Tom Laporta does. If you need a simple repair, he'll do it. I've talked to multiple listeners who thought they needed a whole new roof. They called Tom out. Some even told by other roofers they needed a whole new roof. And Tom Laporta said, no, you just need a repair. And he did it. He works with every type of structure and roofing material, residential, commercial, municipal, even church roofs. Covers the entire state of Florida, both the east and west coast and everywhere in between. And this number rings directly to Tom Laporta's cell phone. You can call or text 954-604-4602. 954-604-4602. That's 954-604-4602. And online, LaportaRoofing.com. Give him a call and have him come out. We'll be right back. Welcome to All right, welcome back, everyone. My name is Brian Craig. This is the Brian Craig Show podcast on all podcast platforms. If you want to catch the podcast live in video form, go to YouTube or YouTube Music and search for the Brian Craig Show. And that's where you can catch the podcast live in video form, where I'm taking the live calls. And the audio version of the podcast is available wherever you get podcasts. The Supreme Court, they're going to hear this birthright citizenship case, CNN. Okay, so they're panicked over there on CNN. This one is probably less likely than likely to not go the way we know that it should, right? You know, the birthright citizenship was meant for two groups of people, the newly freed slaves and then the Indians. Indians are American citizens, right? Do the same thing. But you know, when the slaves, when the Republicans won the Civil War and defeated the Democrat slave owners of the South, there were millions of newly freed slaves. And it was a question at the time, are they citizens? So they passed the amendment. That's it. And they applied it to the Indians as well. Everyone knows this. President Trump isn't saying that everyone born here to a foreigner is not a citizen. What he's saying is everyone who is in the country illegally and gives birth, that child is not a citizen because it was done through fraud. And I don't care what the Supreme Court says if they rule against this, which they're probably most likely to do. I hope not. You know, I do believe in that power of positive thinking and all, but I still think it's unlikely. Don't you guys, that they'll rule the right way? But maybe they won't. Maybe they'll rule in the right way and say no. You know, if you've come over here, and you know the term anchor baby was created because people that are illegal would come here either pregnant or get impregnated and give birth here to have a child to anchor them into the country. That's fraud. It's fraud. It's no doubt about it. It's almost like baby brokering. People that buy babies from people, it's a similar thing in my view. So why should those children be citizens if it was done through fraud? If you accomplish something through fraud, you've still committed a crime. You know, as an example that's totally on another issue that isn't as controversial, insider trading. You go to prison for that unless you're in Congress, right? Pelosi and MTG, and we were talking about Ilhan Omar earlier. But look at Martha Stewart. She got some inside knowledge, made a transaction, $50,000, which is a lot of money to me and most of you, but not to Martha Stewart, and she went to prison for it. Right? Because she made that money through illegal means. Well, isn't that what they're doing, the illegals, when they have babies here? And, you know, the deportations are happening at a level much greater than people realize. I mentioned this the other day on the program. My daughter was talking to a friend of hers back in Los Angeles, and there was an ICE raid on the house next door to a friend of hers, and they picked up the entire family. ICE, it was ICE, boom. Picked up an entire family in the house next door to them. This is happening all over the country. And, you know, not everyone who's here illegally is Trende de Agua or in the cartels, but still, you know, this country, number one, it's not up to us to support the world. That's one. And number two, you see what's going on in Minnesota and elsewhere in the country. You know, I mean, we're being bankrupt, and you and I are being taxed to death, and we're working to death to pay for these people that are in this country illegally. I wanted to share this story, a couple things here with J.D. Vance, who is likely to be the second MAGA president. Let me pull this story up. If you're on hold, hang in there. Let me get to some calls in a bit, maybe. If you want to call in, the number is toll free. But I'm not going to read through the story. But Usha Vance, you know, who's going to be the second MAGA first lady, most likely. They do this. They're doing a really terrible thing. They show her sometimes not wearing her wedding ring. Not wearing her wedding ring. And they're trying to put that into some spin that it's, there's marital problems. She's not wearing her ring. And J.D. Vance gave an interview. He talked about it. He says she's taking care of the kids and does dishes, and she forgets to put her ring back on. Oh. You know, but what are they doing? Well, yeah, she's actually a mother who takes care of her kids herself and does dishes. I was surprised to hear that she's doing dishes in the vice presidential residence at the Naval Observatory, is where that house is. Isn't that something? And she takes her ring off and forgets to put it back on. And they're turning that into J.D. Vance has impregnated Charlie Kirk's widow. They're trying to get that narrative going, aren't they? They're working pretty hard to do it. And J.D. Vance, he's very good with these hot, and I love how he just, boom, put that to bed. It's not going to stop the fake news media from running with that. But the truth, it's pretty obvious truth. That makes a lot. How many of you take off your wedding rings? Yeah, exactly. All the time women do that because you don't want it to go down the sink. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Craig, Little Joker. I'm calling you from Laredo, Texas, right here.
You're calling from where?
I'm calling you
I can't understand
from
what you're
Laredo,
saying.
Texas.
From where?
Laredo, Texas.
Laredo, Texas. Okay. What's up,
Yeah.
Laredo, Texas?
How are you? Hey, I just wanted a question. What's going on with the president pardoning the narco ex-president of Honduras?
Oh, that was a smart thing that he did. I'll tell you why he did it, but why do you think he did it?
I don't know. I guess he was selling the pardon.
You think what?
I guess he was selling the pardon.
He pardoned him. Yeah, but you have no idea. You don't have any theories on why you think he did it.
The money.
What do you mean the money?
I mean,
That he took
I
a
guess
bribe?
he paid the
You think that he
president?
took? You think
Yeah, I
Trump
guess
took
he
a
paid the
bribe?
president. Yeah, there you go, a bribe.
You understand he's worth billions of dollars, President Trump. Why would he take a bribe?
Yes, of course. It's the more you have, the more you want. That's
Not in Trump's case. You know, he doesn't take a salary. No, the reason he did
No.
it.
Of course he doesn't. Of course he doesn't take a salary.
He donates it.
He doesn't take a salary.
He donates a salary.
No, it's easy because he don't have to claim taxes on that.
No, he does. They give it to him, and then he gives it away. He didn't want to take a salary where they didn't have to pay him. They make him take the money, so he gives it away.
So that's why. So every time that he does the taxes, he don't have to claim that money that he's getting paid, right?
He may get a deduction. Right? He may get a deduction. I don't know. Depends on who he gives it to. You don't get a deduction all the time. It depends on who you give it to.
Exactly. So, I mean.
Okay, let me tell you why. Let me tell you why he pardoned. I'm going to tell you.
President of Honduras.
I'm going to tell you.
After all the proof, his brother is still in jail.
I'm going to tell you. Do you want the answer?
Why is the major narco ex-president of Honduras?
Let me ask you this: do you want the answer, or do you want to keep asking the question over and over?
No. I want to hear the answer from you.
Okay, right now the United States is at war against the drug cartels, right? We're blowing up their boats out of the water. We're about to begin land operations.
But, okay.
I'm answering your question. Stop talking while I'm answering, okay? We're about to get involved. We're about to get involved in land operations against the cartels. The the former president of Honduras, since he was on the take with the cartels, like most leaders in Latin America, he knows a lot about the cartels. He knows where they live. He knows who they are. He knows where their factories are. He knows where their fields are. He knows how their financial operation works. He may even know banks that they use. It's intel for the war on drugs against the cartels. That's why he did it. Yes, I answered your question. You can't compute that?
So he's like a toad then.
He's like a what?
A toad. We call that a toad. It has a big mouth.
An informant.
Like an
Yeah,
informant.
he's an informant. Yeah. That's a good thing, right? To tell the cops about the bad guys? That's a good thing to be, right? You think telling the cops about the bad guys is a bad thing? What are you, a crook? You a criminal? Hello?
So that's like selling your word. Yeah.
Okay. So you think it's bad to tell the law enforcement where the bad guys are?
No. It's not bad. I mean, do what you gotta do.
Well, this is what we've got. This is what we found out. Let me tell you what happened with this guy. Let me tell you what happened with this guy. The intelligence that we've had for these military strikes on the drug boats has been phenomenal, right? And Marco Rubio says that they know where the ports are and they're doing some things. My guess is, based on what we've seen, the former president of Honduras gave them some information that was very good, right? That they've been using to take out these drug boats to show that he has a lot of operational knowledge. So they gave him a pardon so that they could get all of his knowledge about the cartels. Isn't that a good thing? Isn't that a good thing?
Yes, that's a good thing.
Okay, so President Trump did a good thing, right?
But why is he accusing Maduro of the same thing that he pardoned?
Now you're just babbling. Hey, listen, thanks for the call. Oh my goodness, right? That makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Of course that's what happened. And you know, another thing about Trump with the pardons, he's the only president that's doing pardons all the time, like during the term. They usually do them like 6 minutes before midnight on their last, they're president for 10 more minutes, right? And they're doing pardons on the way to the inauguration. We've never had a president do these multiple high-stakes pardons during a term like this. There have been pardons made, I'm sure, but not so many all the time. He just does them. And so far as pardoning criminals, I've got news for you. Everyone that gets a pardon is a criminal throughout history. Now, J.D. Vance, this is courtesy of Benny Johnson, and he was at a party the vice president was having. This was last night. Sly is Sly Stallone. She's talking about Sylvester Stallone. This is great. His own money. Oh, my goodness. Who do you think that was? Mike Johnson? Oh, man. It's the Brian Craig Show podcast. My name's Brian Craig. This is where MAGA comes to talk. Talk to you next time. Thanks for listening.